Starting off with the anniversary of the BP oil spill. This week, believe it or not, 16 years since that tragedy, spewing 130 million gallons of oil into the Gulf. It crippled the ecosystem. 11 people died when that rig exploded. Joining us with his insight into what happened then, where we are now, Institute for Marine Mammal Studies President and CEO Moby Solangi. Dr. Solangi, thank you as always. And we were just talking 16 years, and you know, we were saying it's quick for things to get destroyed, but it takes so much longer for things to come back after something happened. Creating takes longer than destroying, it seems like, and even 16 years later, those ramifications still floating around.
Bill, thank you. I appreciate your inviting me. It was a devastating issue. It was the worst man-made disaster in U.S. history, and it happened in the Gulf of Mexico. And the Gulf is a very critical habitat. It's for fisheries, for tourism. And I think this was a wake-up call that we could have really lost a jewel.
Yeah, and I remember when this happened, first there was an explosion and, 11 people passed away. Then as it went on, it was becoming more and more evident. Like they had that one camera just on where all that oil was going, and you're just like, is this ever going to end? Went on for like months, I think, if I recall correctly. So all the damage, and then we saw the tar balls starting to wash up and all the marsh in Louisiana and the pelicans. And when I was younger, I remember the Exxon Valdez when that happened in Alaska. This was bigger than that, which is hard to believe when you see a disaster that was that bad up there. But ours, the effects were even worse, it seems like.
Exactly. Like I said, my PhD in the 70s and 80s was on the effect of crude oil. They wanted to open up the Gulf for oil drilling. And so I studied it, and I didn't realize that, many years later, this would be something we would be dealing with. The thing is, the ecosystem in itself is a very complex thing. And what we specialize in is marine mammals and sea turtles. They're top of the food chain. They're a good biological indicator of the environment. If they're doing well, that means the ecosystem that is supporting them is doing well. And when they don't do well, we have a problem.
Right, now remember, I can't remember the number, but numerous dolphins, sea turtles, as you said, with them being at the top of the food chain, from this area in this ecosystem, it trickled down from there, and we saw a lot of that. And then you throw in afterwards the recovery. They did the best they can to recover, but it takes time, and it was taking time, and maybe things were starting to get better, and then all of a sudden we start seeing the Bonnie Carey opening. So what was that, 9 years after it, which it seems like a long time, but for the ecosystem, it really isn't, right?
You bet. Well, the thing is, like an aquatic hurricane. When a hurricane came in a Katrina, it was gone in a day. Right. But it took many, many years to recover. The same thing happens. We lost about 91 dolphins and 308 sea turtles, which are one of the most endangered sea turtles in the world. People don't realize the largest dolphin population in the United States is here in Mississippi, and this is a critical habitat for the Kemp's Ridley, which is the most endangered sea turtle in the world. The following year, the animals that got pregnant during the oil spill in 2010, when they gave babies, majority of the animals that died were babies the following year. We lost our oysters, we lost our shrimp, we lost our fisheries, we lost our tourism. But then comes the 2019, and things were improving slowly, but then, of course, we have played a very important role in the restoration and recovery of the species and the environment.
Having that Mississippi Sound Coalition after the openings of the spillway and all that ecological damage is huge. From the BP oil spill, of course, there were a lot of settlements, and we've got these Gulf Coast restoration funds. So financially, the area has been able to come back, but ecologically and environmentally, like you were saying before, it takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
Yes, it's been a struggle. The agencies have done a really good job. DMR and DEQ have been very focused on the restoration and recovery. They've been very helpful to us. The Institute has been a key partner with these organizations, having the people. One of our bigger challenges, when you talk about the 2019 Bonnie Carey spillway, you have 31 states and 2 provinces in Canada that send their agriculture, industrial, and sewage, and they've used the Gulf of Mexico as a dump. It's been going on for years. And when you divert the water, people don't realize the Mississippi River is not connected to the Mississippi Sound. The only way we can get it through diversions. And so when you have an influx of such a large quantity and you change the dynamics, you're going to have a disaster. Things have started to improve, but I hope we don't have another one.
Right, because that was 7 years ago, which doesn't seem like a long time, but like you said, in that world, it's still a pretty slow process. Things have been looking good. We've had some better shrimp and oyster seasons, at least last year, so I guess knock on wood, no storms or no floods or anything, but that's always a threat, isn't it?
You bet. Like I said, during the Bonnie Carey spillway, we had more dolphins die than those in BP oil spill.
Wow.
Think about
that's amazing.
that. That's amazing, isn't it? And so we've been monitoring it, working with the state and federal agencies, and I think we are making a major contribution to the restoration and recovery, and I hope we continue in that direction.
Yeah, and now having a seat at the table, or at least close to the table, with the Corps of Engineers and some of those other entities, that's got to at least help. It seems like the progress has been made, at least legislative and with other things. Up in Congress, there's been some acts passed and things. So making progress with that. Getting back to the oil spill, what do you think, obviously with the damage to the ecosystem, but what's the one thing that everybody learned, not just, oil companies, but also environmentalists and everybody? What's that one thing that came out of that spill that holds true today and maybe can prevent something like that from happening again?
But the most important thing is they realized the importance and the value of the Gulf of Mexico, our estuaries, and they realized that if that was gone, our entire economy of the United States would have suffered. And I think that's a very good lesson, and I think people have really coalesced around that. And I believe the Mississippi Sound Coalition has done a very good job having the general public understand the importance of this has made a difference.
Absolutely. They had a much smaller but impactful oil spill recently over in Louisiana Marsh. I know you were probably following that. Anything like that, though, can upset the balance, can it?
It certainly can. And
even though it wasn't as huge, obviously, as BP, still.
Well, think about it. There are more than 3,000 wells in the pipelines out in the Gulf, most of them in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. And so these things will happen. We need to be prepared. And the Institute is always ready, very strategically located, has the capability to not only respond, but to help in the restoration and recovery.
It's a delicate balance. You were saying we were kind of in stranding season. We've had a few, but what's the numbers been like? Are there little, do those kind of tell the tale of what's going on?
Well, right now we're working on it. The stranding season begins in March, April. And so we start looking at trends. One of the important things that the Institute does is by monitoring them, we can understand trends. The continuity of this work is so important because it's like a barometer. It's a thermometer that's measuring, and as it reaches a point, we tell the agencies, hey, we need to look at it. And so that's the importance of the work we do. And I hope that the agencies can continue supporting us.
It never stops. Dr. Moby Solangi, thank you so much for being here and your insight. Made a lot of progress, still a long way to go. Watching out for our wildlife, marine ecosystems. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.